And we are live on YouTube and probably everywhere else. Hey, over on X, I have a little live thing symbol over my profile. It's pretty cool. Never seen that before. Every week I discover something new as I do this. Let's see.
I
Yep,
remember a couple
and
weeks ago when you were experimenting with it, and I got a notification, and wham, I was in, but I was too late.
yeah, we gotta be quicker than that. Alrighty. Okay, I've got those chat areas open, so folks, if you're going to chat us, which by all means you should. I'll be checking LinkedIn and X periodically, as well as the YouTube side I should see on the regular. All right, big show. Welcome back to Tech for Work, where I discuss things I found interesting in the tech and business world this week. My name is Jesse Nolan. I'm your host and the founder of Tab Geeks. Quick apology for the podcast listeners of last week's episode. I hit a button to use AI to auto remove filler words and pauses, and it seems that the AI editor was a bit overzealous and the audio was choppy and cutting, well, all over way more than it should have. So I won't be doing that again unless I've listened all the way through to make sure that it's only editing just the parts that I wanted to and that it sounds good. So, apologies. Hopefully, the sound will be much better. This week, I also moved my microphone down a little bit, so I'm a little bit quieter and won't be popping as much. So, all good things there. Big episode this week, recording it a bit later than usual or live later than usual because I was virtually attending the Google Gemini for Work event, which they had a bunch of announcements on. And I, of course, just set off my Google Home because Google is also really too zealous in wanting my prompts over here. Good job, Google. Let's hope it turns off and doesn't answer me for this very long prompt. Um, but anyway, tomorrow I'm headed to the airport to fly to Utah, so it's gonna be a little bit of a crazy week here. Oh, Christian just turned off his mic.
Well, I just turned
Also,
off the mic so that because I'm probably going to say all sorts of words I shouldn't be saying.
exactly. Yeah, let me cancel that on mine. So, also joining me here is Christian Newman, who you just heard a moment ago, who has been a guest on my shows before. Christian, you're a Google Workspace expert and a fellow Google champion innovator, and you were my first guest on Workspace Recap. So it's fitting that you should be my first guest again on Tech for Work. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And it looks like we have a couple of people coming in on the different broadcasts. So welcome to each of you. Appreciate you joining. We're going to kick things off. I've got a couple of things going on here. Obviously, is all the news from the Google event. I'm also, when listening back to my show last week, realized that I needed to do a little bit more organization on the structure and setup of the topics of the show. So my goal is to keep the show generally sub 1 hour and even better, possibly in the 30 to 45 minute range, but essentially to break things down into individual topics for the future so that I don't jump around as much. This one will be predominantly the Google stuff, but I have a couple of other things to discuss at the end, which Christian you can feel free to stick around for or jump off if you would like. But essentially, without further ado, let's get into the biggest announcements, or what we thought were the biggest announcements for today's Gemini for Work event. And my biggest problem with all of these, just to kick things off with a gripe, is that most of these events are focused towards the developers and not the admins. And so they spent like, I don't know, an hour talking about APIs and development and cloud and Vertex and all of the wonderful, amazing things that Google has built for developers to use. But then, almost a footnote at the end there, and not really part of the keynote, was the workspace integration and what's coming with workspace and, the things that us admins actually care about. So this is going to be things that admins are actually interested in. What about you, Christian? Does that drive you crazy too?
Well, I gotta say, it's improved. Like in today's event, we had a whole track of sessions specific to Google Workspace.
Yes.
Um, so it's definitely gotten better, and certainly at Next, a couple of
Hmm.
months ago, the Workspace content was really quite solid. And I think Gemini is one of these terms or brands, I guess you can call it, that is being applied to everything lately.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy to kind of get cross the streams and get confused between um, what's the context of each one. And certainly when I receive event invitations, it's like Gemini AI this and Gemini AI that. I'm like, well, is it going to talk about all that fancy GCP Vertex AI stuff, which is really cool? Or is it going to talk about sort of end user productivity and administrative security and things like that, which is our area of expertise. So yeah, it can get confusing. You know what I thought you were going to talk about? I thought you were going to talk about the buzzkill, where the sometimes blog posts
Mm-hmm.
go out before the event starts, and it kind of ruins some of the surprise. And
It
well, I guess
does.
it kind of ruined one of the surprises today, but there was lots of other stuff that we didn't know about or hadn't heard before. So we'll talk about
There
that too.
was, yes, and that is true. That is my gripe that I had for Google Next that I was yelling at some of the marketing team over, and again for this event is that they spoiled it. They literally just put up a blog post and ended the embargo for any of the news sites that were going to talk about this before the event started. And I was waking up and reading my morning news digest articles and whatnot, and that was one of them. And I was like, well, that's no fun. Like, you don't see people writing about the iPhone announcements before Apple makes them to the world on the
Yeah,
Apple event. Like, what the hell, Google? Come on.
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
part of the excitement and the fun is seeing it live with everybody all at the same time and.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. Although we're more plugged into it, and maybe it's only spoiling. Maybe we're the exception. It's spoiling it for us, but for normal people, it's they go
Perhaps.
to the event and they're like, oh, this is really cool. So in
Maybe. I'll
fact, I
drop it
had some
in.
clients sending me messages on chat during the event saying, are you in the event? This is really cool stuff.
Okay. Well, maybe we're just that far ahead. Folks, drop your opinion in the chat on whatever platform you're listening, or hit me up on Twitter if you're on the podcast side and listening to this. In the future, how do you feel about this? Should they hold all of the news until it's been announced at the event, or should they just drop it early because the embargo goes live at 8 a.m. or whatever an hour before the event was? Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah.
Biggest announcement that came out of it, though, I think, is the rolling out or expansion of Access. Gemini.google.com, the chat side of things, just in the browser window, not integrated into any of the other applications, but just the one where you can type to Gemini. Christian, do you want to do it? You want to announce it?
Sure. So I've heard it called the Gemini app. They tend to call it the Gemini app. That's what I heard
Okay.
during the session. I've also heard it called Chat with Gemini or Gemini.google.com. But whatever you want to call it, it is now being made available to Google Workspace subscribers as part of their core Google Workspace SKU. So you get a little bit of a taste of what Gemini AI can do for you. Um, Without having to subscribe to Gemini Business or Gemini Enterprise. Now, when you subscribe to Gemini Business, oh, well, there we go.
Got a little
Woo.
applause in there.
So when
Yay!
you subscribe to Gemini Business or Gemini Enterprise, you get a whole lot more. Like you get the translated captions in Google Meet, and you get the take notes for me in Google Meet, and you get the help me write in Docs and proofread in Docs and summarize and the sidebar, which helps you. It's a chat-like interface, but in context with your Google Drive or your Google Chat or your Gmail or anything like that. And I can go on and on and on. There's just so much more, and there's more and more. There's a lot more to come, I'm sure too. But all of those are included in the Gemini Business and Gemini Enterprise. So there's a lot that you get when you subscribe, but that little taste of what generative AI can do for Google Workspace users is going to be included. So it's really cool.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm curious
Pretty
how
exciting.
they're going to have that work with things like what do they call them? The add-ons that are able to tap into your calendar and tap into your email and
Hmm.
actually go
The
and
extensions.
find the extensions. That's what it was.
Hmm.
How that's going to work in terms of that draws into all of the other stuff that it you can't access the chat window in any of those other areas of Workspace, but it is going to be able to reach into those spaces. So that I think when those roll out will be something that'll be really interesting for people, and for a lot of folks that are not interested in purchasing it for their organization, even on the business plan, is an extra $20 a month
Hmm.
per user. This is going to enable them to use a lot of the great things that they maybe are already using ChatGTP for and have open in another window, and are now going to be able to use the private enterprise version, the paid version essentially of Gemini, well, even if it is still in another window.
Yeah, and it almost makes no sense to subscribe to, a paid um, chatbot generative AI anymore if you subscribe to Google Workspace. Now, I wasn't 100% clear if it's going to be all the Google Workspace SKUs or maybe some of them. I guess those are details that will come out later, and we'll learn about, does it include those extensions and all of those other things. We're not sure about that. I guess that will come out in the release notes. But what they did make clear was that your enterprise level privacy and security protections will apply, which means that you basically have your own little instance of Gemini. It's not sharing your prompts with human reviewers. It's not being used to train the overall model. All of those guarantees are still in place, even though it's being included in your core Google Workspace SKU. You're not paying extra for it, and so that's really really neat, right? I think that it will provide a lot of users who haven't subscribed to Gemini Business or Gemini Enterprise with a way to interact with generative AI um, within their, alongside, I should say, their Google Workspace environment. And if they really want the whole sort of integrated experience, that's where Gemini Business and Gemini Enterprise come in.
Right, for sure. I was just looking at the blog post here, and it says the standalone Gemini app, which is what they're calling it, is now included as part of Workspace Business, Enterprise, and Frontline plans. So no
Hmm.
starter in there. Starter's still a thing, right? It's been a little while since I checked.
Well, there's Business Starter, so
Right,
I
so maybe.
suppose that's included in business.
Mm-hmm.
I would think.
Yeah,
But it didn't mention education,
did not
did
mention
it?
education, no. It also has two
And it
stars. It
didn't
says at
mention
the bottom,
essentials.
nope. It says availability and features may vary depending on device, language, country, subscription, and corporate account settings. Internet
Hmm.
connection and setup may be required. Results for illustrative purposes and may vary. Check responses for accuracy, which I always, yeah, that's important. It's funny
Yeah,
that they say
there
that.
is that
That's
admin switch that admins can turn on and off
mm-hmm,
the standalone Gemini app, depending on whether users have a license for business or enterprise. Now, the main reason for that is because previously, if you didn't have a license for Gemini Enterprise or Business, you weren't receiving those enterprise data protections. In other words, your usage could be used to train the model, reviewed by human reviewers, and things like that. So admins could
mm-hmm.
turn it off to maintain that privacy and security. And it was dependent, again, on whether they were a licensed subscriber or not. So maybe that setting will need to change with today's news.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, especially for education, and also if somebody had turned off that feature for just the regular Gemini window, even if you're not subscribed to a license, how that's going to change there. So I am checking on. No, it doesn't look like they have a blog post on the Workspace Updates blog yet. Workspaceupdates.googlblog.com. They do talk about Security Advisor, so some information on that, which I think is one of our next topics down here.
Yeah, the security thing was that was a big point that they made today, which was that Gemini for Google Workspace is the first enterprise-ready certified AI assistant. That's what they had noted on their slides, and they sort of broke out the compliance with standards into two different categories. There was one category is Gemini for Google Workspace, so that's your business and enterprise subscriptions to Gemini. And then the other one is the Gemini app, or this chat with Gemini at gemini.google.com, where it's gaining they're sort of on different tracks as far as which certifications and compliance they're achieving. And so there's some, so for example, HIPAA, which is, very well known,
Hmm.
is already compliant for the Gemini for Google Workspace integrated experiences. But for the Gemini app, the chatbot at gemini.google.com, that HIPAA is going to be becoming compliant in October, right? So it's a little bit different timing depending on which of those standards they are getting certified for. But in the end, Gemini is the best option available for companies who want to make sure that they're compliant with not only HIPAA but also SOC or GDPR or ISO or those various other compliance certifications.
Yeah, they're really leaning in hard on the whole trust us with your data because your data is your data bit. And I was at a children's birthday party for one of my kids' classmates like 2 weeks ago. And, the awkward small talk with other parents and what do you do and what do you do and so on. And so I mentioned what I do, consulting for, IT and the YouTube channel, talking about all things business technology and so on. And of course, the topic came around to AI, and we were discussing, oh, AI, yeah, sure, everybody is using your data and they're training. And I said, well, if you're paying for it and you are on business terms, then they're not allowed to, and it's not stored, and so on. And I started talking about some of the things that Google was talking about at Next, which is what they reiterated some of at this event, which is your data, and that they're not training on it, can't access any of it, and so on. And he's like, "Yeah, well, I don't believe that." So Google, you got a long way to go on this still.
Yeah.
The regular and he's a what the hell is he? Some kind of financial investment consultant of some sort. And he was like, "Yeah, I don't trust any of them. I don't believe him when they say that they don't access your data or can't access your data. They have to be able to access your data, and clearly they're using it and they're training on it and so on." And I was like, "Okay, I mean." There's a lot of evidence to show how they are proving this, and all of these
Yeah.
certifications are definitely going to go a long way towards that. So I thought that was a very entertaining anecdote here. Get to work, Google.
Yeah, well, I mean, I still hear from people once in a blue moon. Is Google selling advertising because of the contents of my Gmail mailbox and things like that? I still get those questions, and they're fair questions, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
answer is unequivocally no, they're not, right?
If you're
Your
paying
data
for
is
it.
your data, and the only thing that's done with it is what you ask to be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's a little bit more work to do for sure. But Google, from the very beginning with Gemini, has been very clear that you basically have, when you subscribe to Gemini for Google Workspace with business or enterprise SKU, you basically have your own little instance of Gemini, right?
Yep.
That is providing you responses and helping you to collaborate and generate content and things like that. But that any interactions that you have with it are not used to train the overall Gemini model. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you trust Google Drive to be able to hold your confidential informations, then you trust Gemini to be able to generate content for you because it's governed by the exact same privacy guarantees either way.
Exactly. And some additional thoughts on the free, not free, but now included version of Gemini, the Gemini app at gemini.google.com. I'm curious if it's going to be rate limited in any way. Wasn't that one of the big differentiators between the business and enterprise SKUs of Gemini was that you were going to be limited in how many prompts you could do per month? I think it was like
How
was
many
it
requests? Yeah,
20
yeah.
20,000. Again, it's been a little while. I'm trying to remember all this.
Yeah, 1,000. The business SKU includes 1,000 requests per month,
A
right?
thousand. That's
So
what it was. Okay.
if you ask it to generate some content and then you say, well, can you make this adjustment? And then can you make that adjustment? That's two or three requests, right?
Yep.
So it's with a power user, you can burn through it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The better you are at prompting, um, the more efficient your usage will be. But yeah, they didn't say anything about whether there's going to be any usage limitations with
They
the now
didn't say a lot.
included Gemini app. And again, that'll come through in the release notes, I'm sure. We'll find out. But either way, pretty exciting stuff. And Aparna, in her session, she actually also said that the Gemini app, which is available at gemini.google.com, but also available on mobile devices. If you're on Android, it's in a standalone application, probably soon to be baked right into Android, I'm sure.
Hmm.
And if you're on Apple, then it's in the Gemini search app, right? I think. Yes, still. You can
Yeah.
tell me you're an iPhone user,
Uh,
although
Let me
not
double
lately.
check.
Um,
Lately, I've been double
yeah, I know. But
iPhone and Android.
it's going to be available for Gemini Business and Enterprise subscribers for Google Workspace on the mobile devices as well. Whereas right now, as of a few minutes ago, if you try to open the app using your Google Workspace account, even if you're a subscriber to Gemini, it will tell you that enterprise accounts aren't supported yet. So hopefully soon. Aparna, please. We need
Um,
that mobile access. But
so
she did say
I
soon.
can sort of show that I already have mobile access on iOS, probably through Labs, where Gemini is a little icon there that I can say I can type to it just any of the prompts that I normally would. So show me unread emails from today, or show me unread emails from this week are the two prompts that it gives me. But theoretically, I could go through and ask it whatever I
Mhm.
would normally ask it.
Hmm.
So we are
I'll check
close.
again. We're getting close. I still see this. Enterprise accounts aren't supported yet.
Oh no, and that's on
So
Android.
sad emoji. I
Sad
think it
times.
probably has to do with the fact that your account is enrolled in Labs. That would be my bet. But
Yeah, and for those who are curious, I have Gemini in Gmail on Android as well. So it's probably Labs. It's probably coming relatively soon, especially with these announcements.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. What else here? She shared an interesting stat.
Yep, yep.
Gemini saves the average worker 105 minutes per week. That's huge, right? What's 105 minutes per week? 105 times 52 divided by 12. That's 455 minutes a month.
And that's
That's seven
average.
7.5 hours per month. Now I
Hmm.
don't know who their sample is, right? But that's a lot of time, right? In terms of summarizing long email threads, when you get copied into the 14th email in a conversation and you need to get the gist of what's going on, one click summarize, or
Hmm.
some of those auto generated responses, and things like that, creating docs from scratch. There's just so much time that Gemini can save you. And I would say that I usually save, I don't know, probably, I was going to say a couple hours a month. I don't know if it's 7.5 hours per month for me specifically. Maybe I'll measure, but 105 minutes per week is really really strong. And one of the things that I run into when I'm talking to clients about Gemini, they say, "Well, gee, 26 or 39 well, Canadian dollars, sorry, 20 or 30 American dollars per month. That feels really expensive, right?" And on the one hand, that would be my sort of immediate reaction. But on the other hand, when I consider the fact that I'm probably comparing to the core Google Workspace SKU, which
Yep.
gives me Gmail and calendar and docs and sheets and slides and chat and meet, and I can go on and on and on. There's just the value that is built into a Google Workspace subscription at, I don't know what, $20, $30 a month, something like that, depending on which one you
Hmm.
choose, is just mind blowing. And so if you compare basically anything to that, it's going to feel expensive. But in the end, if you're talking about 20 or $30 a month for Gemini, and you think of the average worker and how much they earn, right? Like how much time savings do they actually need to achieve in order to pay that back? Like the bar is
Hmm.
actually pretty low. What are we talking about? Like 20, 30, 40 minutes per employee per month in order to
Right.
pay it back. So to hear a stat like this saves 105 minutes per week on average, it's like, wow, it kind of drives home the value that is built into that 20 or $30 investment every month, right?
There you go. You can add that to your sales deck. It pays for itself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, but again, like when we talked about the prompting and things like that, right? Quality in
Hmm.
equals quality out, right? So if you just buy a
Yes.
SKU and you expect it to do your job for you, it's probably not going to work out too well. But if you apply some effort to understand how does generative AI work and how can I work with this new tool, right? This new dance partner, how can we make magic together rather than stepping on each other's toes, right? So yeah, quality in, quality out is, it
So
goes with everything in life, really.
you asked about the source of that. They do in the blog post mention that it was based on an internal Google analysis of survey data from completed Gemini for Google Workspace pilots. Some pilots began in December 23 and are still in progress. Data was aggregated in July 2024 across 18 enterprise customers globally, spanning North America, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia Pacific. They looked at more than 3,200 responses from employees across a broad range of industries, including manufacturing, healthcare, and life sciences, retail, energy, financial services, and software and technology. So that's a pretty impressive spread.
Yeah, there you go. It's a pretty diverse group of customers. I mean, they're all big customers,
Right.
but diverse industries and probably, you know, diverse cross sections of users, like people in different types of role, whether it's customer service or HR or marketing or whatever. So that's pretty good. The one thing that kind of crosses my mind is that if it's a small, what was it, 18 clients
Yeah, 18
across something
companies.
like
Yeah.
that, 18 clients. So it's probably in terms of running those pilots, what I can assume is that there was probably a high degree of support from Google or Google Cloud partners in order to make sure that the value of Gemini is reinforced and there's um, user engagement in order to drive adoption and really make sure that people learn how to make the most of the tools.
Hmm.
And we've seen that as being a really critical part of the equation for our own clients too. So
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
yeah.
And I was noting earlier that it was interesting that they're rolling out the Gemini app to everybody who is already, a workspace customer because to me, it kind of signals a shift in their strategy. Before they were, oh, we have to charge everybody for this, and the initial SKU was, the most expensive one was $30 a month, and you only got access to it if you did that. I think what they found probably was twofold: one, that not many people were signing up for it, or not as many as they wanted to, and two, that people were probably using Gemini.google.com anyway if their admins hadn't turned it off, and so therefore they may as
Mhm.
well just include it in this. And three, Copilot from Microsoft is included in like everything, and it's supposedly the more advanced version of ChatGTP. So, three for three. If you really want to be competing here and you want to be offering value, you mentioned before, how much value is in a Google Workspace license. That just takes it so much further. Is that now you're going to get the ability to have the latest greatest edition of whatever model they're using to power whatever Gemini model they're using to power this into the future. I think it's an excellent move, and I look forward to seeing the adoption of it go through the roof, because then you'll have a lot more stress testing and a lot more focus on developing it further as a product that's going to continue, as opposed to Google's kind of scatterbrain lack of focus across different products. Because Gemini is available in all these different areas, sometimes they tend to forget about certain ones. But if you're enabling it for hundreds of millions, billion, don't know,
Mhm.
customers, then there's gonna be a lot more focus to it, most likely, than if it was just a passion project.
Yeah, I think she shared a stat. What was it? 10 million paying Google Workspace customers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's essentially who they're enabling it for, right?
Yep.
And that's a good opportunity to stress test it, drive adoption, accelerate the improvements of the product. And it's also a marketing opportunity too, because if you find success with the standalone Gemini app, it's kind of inevitable that you're going to crave having it built right into your Gmail, right?
Hmm.
And your Google Docs and your Google Drive and things like that. So I'm sure there's a lot of factors that um, were a part of this decision. So,
Yeah, definitely.
but exciting.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's move on and talk about some of the other interesting things that were coming out. Vids is going general availability December 2024. I really wanted access to Vids when I was at Next. I got access to Vids and I used it a handful of times. And because I'm a full blown video editor, I haven't really used it much since. But they showed off a really interesting use case for it today, which was that they had notes from the different events that they were involved in, and they wanted to be able to create not only a slideshow of it, which is partially what it does, but also create narration from the documents. And they were able to feed them into Gemini in Vids, both the documents as well as then generate from those documents not only the slides or the frames of the video, if you will, but then also a admittedly slightly robotic sounding voice, but still AI generated voiceover to create a video presentation of the events they were doing, the project that they were recapping. And I mean, maybe we'll bring back Workspace Recap, and it'll just be AI generated in Vids, and I'll just feed it the release notes every week.
Yeah, it was pretty slick how she did it, though. Yeah, I maybe the AI generated voice sounded like it was AI generated a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe some of the other voices are a little bit more natural sounding. I don't know. She only demonstrated one of them, but we can
Right.
dive in and find out. There were more voices available than I'd seen previously,
Hmm.
um, uh, because I've had access to it for some time, so that's great. I also liked how she very easily swapped out the fonts and colors in order to match the brand identity. One
Hmm.
thing I'd love to see Google do is to be able to manage that centrally in the admin console, because these sorts of things apply across all of the different types of content, right? Like if you think of a Google Doc, right? Like, why aren't the company's colors and fonts just able to be the defaults
Yep.
that are available in Google Docs or Sheets
I
or
think
something like that? Why do
can't
I
you
have to
mandate
be
that in
able?
slides?
You can in slides.
Yeah.
You can create standardized templates for slides as well as forms. In forms, you can as well. It doesn't apply them automatically, but they're automatically available to be applied to any Google form. But in Google Docs, for example, every single new document that I create, I need to add my company's accent colors, for example, right? I don't want to have to do
Hmm.
that. I think that it would be great if we could centrally manage that. And for the odd company, they also actually have built their own custom fonts for branding and things like that. And
Oh
so
yeah.
the ability to be able to add a font to Google Workspace applications, like a custom developed font, is something that it's not a small number of organizations that would want that. A lot of organizations just use standard web fonts that are available, Lato and Montserrat, and all of those typical
Hmm.
ones. But some have very unique brands, and they've developed their own. So it'd be great to be able to do that, or at least centrally manage from what is universally available. That'd be
Well,
kind of
I
nice.
would be I would be one of those orgs because I didn't custom create my font, but I did purchase a unique font
Mhm.
that I use for all of my thumbnails and for a lot of my branding for Tab Geeks, and it's in the logo. That styling, that font is used in the name in the logo. So I would love to be able to upload that to Google Workspace. I do have it uploaded to Canva, and that's where I do all of my branding work, and
Mhm.
that was easy. So if I could set that as
Speaking of
the
Canva,
the standard, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
remember what we learned something about Canva today. There was where was it? There was an extension for Canva, a Canva add-on for Google Workspace that was shared.
Mhm.
Yeah, ooh, that's nice. And there was a nice little HubSpot integration with Gemini, and maybe in Google Chat, I think it was. Where's the
Yep.
Yeah, was it Gmail or Google Chat? The screenshot I see Gmail actually. But either way,
Interesting.
there was a screenshot of a Gemini extension there, and they featured HubSpot, but it was plural extensions, which sounds like there could be more to come as well.
Yeah, I think they
That
were
was
also
really
talking
interesting
about
too.
Salesforce was also integrated with something like this, and I
Hmm.
think this was in. I guess this is in Gmail. I'm looking at the screenshot here. Um, Trying to see if I have a better image of that we can I can post or I can put on the screen here so that people can see. Um, Not a lot of slides shared from this event, so you're just gonna take our word for it, or go watch the event yourself.
Well, if you just think of Canva and HubSpot alone, there's so many and Salesforce. There's so many organizations that use those three applications combined, right? Like those are
Yep.
huge names. And
Mm-hmm.
if Google's partnering with some of those big names, it will bring a lot of additional functionality to Gemini and by extension, no pun intended, Google Workspace as well. So really cool. Great to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's also very interesting because the kind of path that they were putting Gemini on in the early days when they were talking about when they had first announced it was essentially that not even actually probably before Gemini was that Gmail was evolving to be your kind of one-stop shop for all your um, not just communications, but also a workspace and getting
Hmm.
things done. And they have long been chasing this ability to pull in data from other systems and applications that you're connected to, because at the end of the day, a lot of it does come down to interacting with it via chat or in emails or sending documents and being able to do pretty much most of that in Gmail. Obviously, the editing documents or creating documents not as much, but you can edit documents when you're in chat directly because you can open them in
Hmm.
one of the panes in Gmail. And I think that adding in Gemini here makes it much more attractive as a function because then you're really able to instantly query a lot of information and interact with a lot of information in an intelligent way, whereas before it would have been a lot of other steps to make all that happen and to pull all that data
Hmm.
in, which is why they were kind of waiting on or asking developers to build that for them. Whereas now with giving Gemini the ability to do it, it doesn't have to be as hard coded as it would have been once before Gemini, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, it's exciting stuff. We also saw other bits and pieces of that in recently they announced third-party smart chips in docks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you could there was a project management example, and there was a what was it? It was Lucid Charts or something like that, where you could query and add data to third-party systems right from within a Google Doc. So if you're having a meeting and you're meeting to recap a project or something like that, or plan a project, let's say, you can have third-party smart chips that plug into these other non-Google Workspace services right in your meeting notes document, right? Which is really cool. So a lot more extensibility, and that's kind of what you get with a cloud native solution like Workspace. So it's good to see them uh, building upon that story.
Definitely. Interoperability is key and the path forward, and I'm very excited to see them uh, further adopting it. I won't say adopting it because they've been doing this for a long time, but continuing to further the mission there.
What did you think of the Imagine image generation? I know that that's something that you've talked about before, where there was image generation, but then there wasn't, and then there was some, and then so Gemini's had a bit of a journey when it comes to image generation, that's for sure. But Aparna mentioned that the Imagine image generation is coming soon to Gmail, Docs, Slides, and more. Now, we've always had image generation in Google Slides, right? You could, imagine like they have that giraffe standing in front of the Eiffel Tower that we've seen in all of the videos and demonstrations and things like that. You can imagine without having to scour the internet and then check on licensing and all that kind of stuff. You can imagine any kind of image that you want and insert it to your slides or even as a background in Google Meet, which I've used as well. Not now,
Yep.
as you can tell, but really helpful. But to be able to generate images and add them to Gmail, Docs, sheets? Like, what sort of possibilities does that create? It's really interesting.
I actually groaned when she said that it was going to be available for Gmail. I was like, do we have to? I don't need more AI. I don't need any more images in my emails. Never mind AI generated ones. But I can see
Mhm.
for, education, that would be really helpful. I can see for certain environments where that would be really helpful. Um, you
Docs, I would
know,
use it.
Oh, docs 100%, slides a
Mhm.
1000%.
Mhm.
In the Gemini app just for funsies, even more. And I do go in there and play around with it every once in a while to see how good it's getting. But it's also been great just for like the occasional thumbnail or something that I'm putting together. Just to I was talking with one client about using it for prototyping. They have a certain style that they do. That's a imaging, or what they do, like a artistry design shop, and they were like, we want
Mhm.
to be able to prototype our ideas and kind of like throw it out there, but not, you know, not actually go and have to do all the work of building it for each individual one, and being able to throw that in a text form and output what you're looking for most of the way or part of the way is certainly really helpful. In emails, I personally don't want to be receiving lots of images in my emails. I haven't banned images in my emails, that's fine, but the amount of newsletters and junk that we get in emails as it is, um, I mean, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, we're all supposed to have our AIs reading our emails to us anyway. So, those will just skim over the images or something.
I would love to be able to have Google Vids extension for email. That would be really great because, sometimes if I want to reply with a more personal message, there's just there's value that video can add to a message that text just cannot, right? So to be able to hit one button to record a video response, or
Hmm.
quite often for me, record my screen. Like, I'm often sent emails asking, hey, how do I do this or how do I do that? And to be able to just hit a button right in line with the Gmail,
Yep.
maybe down at the bottom with my, text formatting and add to drive and all that kind of stuff. I'd be able to love to be able to just record my screen and say, hey, step one, step two, step three, do a screen share with a voiceover. And by the way, add that to chat too, please. That would
Yeah,
be really great.
so I think we've talked about it before. I've definitely talked about it on Workspace Recap back in the day. Threadit was a Google Area 120 project, and the whole purpose of project was short video recordings to be able to talk about your work. And the website is actually still up,
And there was a Gmail
threadit.area120.com.
extension.
And there was a Gmail extension, and you can
Yeah.
record yourself and share anything on your screen and easily switch back and forth. I'm just pulling this off the website right now. That's still there and green. But to your point, I really wish they add that. I really, really would love to see that.
Yeah, I'd love to see it too.
Like they've got the tech, they've got the team. Put all the pieces
Mhm.
together, just make it happen. A throwback to the previous conversation that we were having about smart chips. Charles Maxon over on LinkedIn is commenting. Charles, for those who don't know, is a developer advocate for Google Workspace at Google, and a good friend of the show, and has been on Workspace Recap in the past, and always good fun to hang out with at conferences and in-person stuff. Sent me a link for the developer.google.com add-ons guides here for ways that you can preview links with smart chips. So those third-party integrations there, you're going to be able to build out all of that. There's a whole huge documentation and resources here for how you can do that. But essentially, when you are able to autocomplete links with a title and so on, you're going to be able to control all of that and build that in here much better. So I'll include a link to that in the notes as well.
What else did we see
Alrighty.
that we haven't talked about?
Just drop that link over there so that I have it for later. Thank you, Charles.
Oh, Aparna showed off Translate for me in Google Chat, which was really neat.
Hmm.
Um, Translate for me in Google Meet is awesome. It works very well. Have a number of clients who are using it very successfully. Um,
Cool.
but it would be great to see it in chat. In Aparna, sure enough, she showed off a little demonstration of Translate for me in chat. And I don't know, kind of excited about that.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience with it, but I do know that it's an issue, and I have complained about in the past in Google Meet needing to use Zoom for a company town hall for one of my clients because they do live translation and transcription from English into Spanish, and now you're going to be able to do a lot of that in Google Meet. But to be seeing this expanded throughout the rest of the library, or not the library, the apps, is quite impressive. I'm gonna hit mute. I think one of my kids is in the garage here. Yeah, my kid is sick.
Okay,
So, Christian, you talk for a few minutes. I'll be right back.
sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so being able to use Translate for me in Google Chat is pretty exciting. We'd really love to see it, like Jesse said, in some of the other applications too. Not only for generating content, but also for understanding existing content. Gmail is kind of an obvious one where I'd love to be able to see that there too. And we all know that Google has the smarts. Gemini has the capability already. And so just bringing that to life would be super important. And I got to think that Google's got a lot of enterprise level customers, multinational organizations, and things like that that would benefit tremendously from that. And I think that's why we saw such rapid expansion of the languages supported by real-time translations and captions in Google Meet. And I think they're up to around 4,600 language pairs, like more languages and combinations of languages than I could ever enumerate myself, are supported by real-time translations in Google Meet. So pretty cool. So let me see, what else have we got here in our notes that we talked about today? So we talked about Google Vids. One very interesting thing that was said about Google Vids that we didn't talk about. I'd like to get Jesse's hypothesis on this when he comes back. But expanding Google Vids to select core Google Workspace SKUs, right? So right now, Vids is available to alpha clients, so Google Workspace and Gemini clients who have enabled the alpha features in the admin console. That's what that means. But in order to access Google Vids, or should I say, in order to create videos in Google Vids, you have to be a licensed Gemini business or Gemini enterprise user. Other users within the Google Workspace, to my understanding, Jesse will correct me if I'm wrong, they would be able to view Google Vids, but they won't be able to generate them. Like they won't be able to use that AI capability to create them from scratch. However, like I said, Aparna said during the Google Vids, no, it wasn't Aparna. Can't remember who was leading the Google Vids session. Jesse, you can find out maybe. But she said that Google Vids is expanding to select core Google Workspace SKUs soon, right? So sounds like there's going to be a little bit more availability of Vids than we initially thought, right? Because you may not, depending on what SKU you have, require a Gemini for Google Workspace license. Right?
Yeah, that would be very exciting because Vids is pretty cool, and like we're talking about with Gemini, more people getting access is definitely only going to be a good thing there.
Yeah. Let me see. What else have we got here? Well, I think those are the main points that I jotted down. So overall, this morning sessions, overall impressions, I don't know. What do you think, Jesse? Where's your mind
Looking
at?
forward, it was interesting that this was kind of like Google Next point 5, that they had a keynote from TK and it was a lot talking about developer stuff, and then Aparna was pre-recorded. I'm not sure if the keynote was pre-recorded or live streamed, but hard to tell sometimes. And it's interesting that they did a mid-year event. The Google Next coming up, I think, is in April. But I guess when the industry and things are moving this fast, and you've got such a big announcement like the ability to roll out Gemini.Google to every workspace user, that's a huge update there. And also, big updates to the rest of the models and what they're doing on the developer side as well. So it makes sense that they did it. it's also good to see more things like this where they're showing things off. It does frustrate me where they're like, it'll be available next year sometime. It's like, stop promising me new shit. Give me the old stuff, and maybe move the windows closer to where they are announcing and releasing, as opposed to several months out. Some of the things they said today was, by the end of the year, which I don't want to think about it, but it's closer than you think it is. We're at
Yeah.
the end of September here, folks, headed into October. So, um, you know, but all in all, always happy for this. And one thing I did want to mention that they kept flashing on the screen at the end of the what do you call it? It's the end of the sessions that we were watching is a Gen AI for Work events that they're doing in person. So it's a half-day event series designed for businesses and IT leaders to discover the power of Google AI. So kind of show you how to do it, answer questions, things like that. Some of them are customer led, some of them are Google led. The in person ones in North America are in Toronto, Atlanta, Denver, Dallas, Boston, and San Francisco. San Francisco says coming soon for the registration, so I will have to get more information on that. In theory, maybe that might be worthwhile for me to fly out and to cover in person. I don't know if I would want to fly out to the other ones. And there are other options for Latin America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific regions, which I'm not going to go into now. But if you're interested in that, I will leave a link to this in the show notes, but it's just in the cloud.withgoogle.com/, well, it's too long. Never mind. Gen AI Work Hub with bashes in the middle, whatever. I will include a link in the show notes. And I usually, for those um, on YouTube, or if you're looking for those show notes, I usually, after I've processed the event, which means gotten it ready for the podcast network, because I download it and tweak it and edit it a little bit and whatnot. I will then generate show notes partially using AI, because I started with AI and then I fix it up to fill in all the blanks and other areas. It's at that point that I'll update the live event on YouTube with the description. I can't always do that on X and LinkedIn because it does not always happen and within the hour that, because, got other things to do and stuff. But any of the links that I talk about, I do try and put in the show notes, both on the podcast side as well as on the individual event here on YouTube. So that's, I think, the major news for Workspace and today's event over there. There are some Chrome events that are coming, as I mentioned in last week's live broadcast. I don't know what specifics I'm allowed to tell you about until after the embargo, but stay tuned. Probably, in fact, I haven't even been briefed, so I would imagine some new devices. Um, but I'll have more information probably for next week, and then I'm going to likely be attending one in person in October, like I mentioned, specifically work focused, um, uh, that I'll be flying out to New York for. So that should be a lot of fun. Just to quickly go through some of the other things that I have here on the topics. Already, we've been recording for 52 minutes, so let's wrap this up. I have the new iPhone 15 Pro Max in hand. I have been using it and playing with it. It's fantastic. It's an iPhone. It's bigger, better, faster, bolder, whatever than last generation. It's still an iPhone for those who are interested. I will be doing a video which I'm calling the IT department's guide to the new iPhones, which I'm going to be filming today. Hopefully, release sometime this week. Again, I'm probably traveling tomorrow. Although one of my babies has a fever, so I might abort that trip. We'll see.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he woke up with 102 last night, and or right before he went to bed, and then apparently just his fever just spiked again. So I'm gonna go deal with that, and hopefully he feels better. But that may ground me for this week's festivities. We'll see. Two other things I got going on is real quick for the Ubiquiti fans in the room. If you haven't left, because this has been predominantly a Google show up until this point, Ubiquiti has a new 2.5 gigabit desktop switch that just came out today, which mine is en route. It should be here by the end of the day. They are sending it to me, and I will, of course, do my usual unboxing and show off video for all of the features on there. But it is already sold out on the website in traditional Ubiquiti style, is that people go crazy for the new devices. Yes, JJ Mart is commenting on YouTube and sold out by 8:30 a.m. PST. So I'm late to the game in saying that it's sold out. Thankfully, I do have one, like I said, that's en route. And I will say they fixed the number one thing that was driving me crazy from the similar size Flex Mini switch is that they move the USB-C port to the front or the back, depending on which side you consider the front or the back, so that all of the ports are now on the same side. So the Ethernet ports and the Ethernet ports and the USB-C charging port, if you do choose to use that instead of PoE, are now all in the same row in a line, whereas before you had the USB-C on the backside or with the opposite side of the cables, and it just didn't look as clean, didn't look as nice. So very happy to see that, and looking forward to get my hands on that and tearing it down. I also am going to be doing a video on my full review of the Ubiquiti Cloud Gateway Max, which has been extremely versatile and so awesome as a teeny tiny little take it with you Ubiquiti do it all gateway. So when that is ready, which I'm going to be, I already filmed it, so I'm going to be editing that hopefully this week, maybe next, depending on how the rest of the week goes, and I will get that out there. One PSA for the Anchor fans, for anybody who's watched my videos, you know that I'm a huge fan of Anchor and buy lots and lots and lots of their stuff. They are recalling the Anchor 334. It's a 10,000 milliamp battery pack with MagSafe on it, and they recalled pretty much the entire line. Apparently, it's a fire risk, and they have a sorry, I'm getting distracted by the comments. They have a forum and a website where you can check your serial number to see if you were affected by the batteries. Apparently, they had an issue with their supplier, and the supplier they have now dumped. So this probably or should not be a problem. That being said, all the listings for this product have been removed from Amazon and anywhere else that I have seen it, so you can't even buy it anymore. I recommend if you have that, definitely go and check out your serial number and see if you need to dispose of it right away, because that is really scary if these things catch fire. So that's pretty much it. I got the new iPhones. Let me know your questions, comments. JJ Mart again says, and this is a throwback to one of my earlier videos or my unboxing video, says that the Cloud Gateway Max does not have an internal fan, or sorry, does have an internal fan, FYI. Which is true. At the time, I was questioning whether it had a fan or not, because it does have the fan slots in the bottom. It's not totally sealed throughout, but I hadn't heard it at that point. I have now heard it. I have used it. I haven't noticed it that much, honestly, but I have heard reports from other folks that have said that it is pretty loud, and especially those that were hoping to have it in a quiet environment, such as a bedroom, that you do hear it when it is running and does spin up. So. Hopefully, everything is working correctly over on YouTube and on the streams, because it looks like YouTube had some bitrate issues going on there for a bit. So thanks to all who joined us for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was valuable to all of you. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I was just crossing the 3,000 subscriber mark, and hey, as of while we're recording, I'm now over 4,000 subscribers. So thank you to everybody who hit that subscribe button and is watching the content. I do this for all of you, and I
That's
love
amazing.
doing it. And thank you. So another round of applause for myself. I'm going to indulge myself with a round of applause.
It took you so long to get to 2,000.
Oh my
and
God! It
then
took
you
me
hit
so long to get
3,000,
to
and now bam,
500.
4,000.
It took me so
It's
long to get
crazy.
to 1,000, and then yeah, it's been carried a lot by a Starlink video that I did, a Starlink Mini, that's now at like 340,000 views, which
I
is
watched
just
that one.
mind-boggling to me to think that 340,000 people have seen something that I've created. Like, can you imagine several stadiums worth of people sold out? Talking to them. I'm stuttering thinking about it. I was like, oh my God. So it's a little bit crazy, but this is why I'm doing this. So 345,443 as of current count. So more Starlink
Wow.
content coming, more Ubiquiti content coming, more Google content coming, and let me know what you all want to hear, so I can continue growing the channel and continue doing this for everyone. So that's all for this week, and we hope to see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, Christian. Okay.